Good morning. Ooh, you can tell I'm used to saying morning. Good evening. Hi, Patricia.
Hello, how are you?
Hello. How you doing? Hi, Sherry. JG. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry I had problems logging on my own webinar. That's bad. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Hi, Natasha. Okay. All right. Well, hey, everybody. Today is Monday evening, and welcome to the Monday Night Hustle. Thank you for joining me this evening. I'm Pamela Tate Roger, and this webinar is recording. That was great. I didn't have to press record on it. It actually is recording this evening. How's everybody doing? Okay, everybody's on mute, which is okay. Thanks, Astrid. Hey, May May. We have our new executive on the line. She's on our team. So I want to say congratulations to Miss Mary May May Savoy. She had a great party yesterday. Thank you for joining us this evening. And hey, Natasha, we're going to get started because I know it's late for some people, and I truly appreciate the people who joined us this evening because it is late night. Miss JG set an alarm. I had to set an alarm too. Don't laugh. I wound up hosting the morning call this morning unexpectedly. I found out at 5:20 that I was going to be hosting this morning, and kind of changed my morning around a little bit, particularly after yesterday's long day and being away from home and going to Mary's party and getting back home. So great to be here tonight. We're going to get started. Natasha, I am not mad at you for taking a nap. Oh my God, it's midnight there. Thank you so much for getting up and joining me. I hope that I can make this worthwhile for everybody. Tonight I have a couple of loose things I was going to talk about, but I figure why don't we see if anybody has anything specific that they would like to talk about or work on, or else I'm going to go to my topic for the evening is how to help your clients avoid travel mistakes and how, as a travel agent, to learn from these mistakes and to not make them yourselves. None of us are perfect. I have been known to make some travel planning blunders. And you'll find one thing about me is I try to be 100% transparent. And if I do something, I'm going to say I made a mea culpa. And we want to learn from those mistakes so that other people don't create them or recreate them, so to speak. But does anyone have anything specific they'd like to talk about tonight? Any problems with a booking? Any questions on how to handle a specific issue with a booking? Feel free to unmute your line or type it in the chat box and we can address it. Or either I'll start with my topic, and then if something comes up where someone wants to ask, then we can do that. Does anybody have anything specific they'd like to address this evening? No? Okay, I am going to.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I have a person who's interested in going to the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, and I was wondering when is the best time to start looking for hotels for that?
Generally around Olympics, they start to build things. And, even if they have established hotels, they will start to build new things. So honestly, you can start now. We went to South Korea this past summer, and we were in Seoul. And so they were building a lot of things when we were there, including finishing up part of the Olympic Stadium. And so you can literally start now. I would say check in with their countries. We didn't do Convention Bureau, but I would say check their Olympic committee. They keep updates on things that are being built, and then you can certainly look for things that are there now. You can check and see if there are any additional types of resources that are out there based on what's there now. They will list out things that are around the Olympic Village, and it's definitely never too early to start looking at something. I'm looking at a Rio trip for 2020. And granted, it's not the Olympics, but you can never start looking too early. If you go and start looking at official Olympic pages, they will kind of guide you around that area as well.
And can I even start, let's say they wanted to pay early, can I start now? Or I know that, for instance, they want to do a payment plan, or is it better to just maybe start the year of?
I don't even have professional advice on something like that. Generally speaking, if you're doing something over 18 months or out, most hotels aren't going to give you an exact rate. You definitely aren't going to find flights this early. So if someone wanted to do a payment plan, you really don't have a way that they're paying on anything. We don't have any idea how much Olympic tickets cost yet. You don't know how much airfare costs yet. And hotels don't generally have pricing for this yet. I would say go to an Olympic site, check and see if they're listing anything yet. And of course, you can call hotels in that area and just kind of get a gauge on how much things are costing currently. But also be aware, as things get close to high ticket events, just like I'm working on Essence right now, things just get crazy because they know people are going to be attending. So just because you're looking at a price now, it could be close to double that price as it gets closer to the time, just because of the demand.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. If someone wanted to go to the Olympics and it's like not you personally, I would encourage them highly to start saving money. I would encourage them, if they're trying to save up points, and I'm not one who's ever worked on using like your flight points, whatever, what have you, but if they can start saving up points, I would try and do that with my credit card. And I don't know how to utilize those because I've never worked with anybody who's turning in points, particularly when you're talking about a group. If it's an individual, you would just get whatever their ID code is when they go to. Hold on for a second. I am on my webinar. Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry. Never mind. My daughter lost her mind. Pardon me, everybody. I don't know if you guys could hear her back there. Yeah, so it's just very early. You can get those things and just generally get a price feel now. You can look online and just kind of see what things were like for the last Olympics or what was going on in Seoul, Korea, to just kind of get a gauge, but it's too early.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Did anyone else have a question or concern or something they'd like to address before I jump into travel pitfalls? Okay. Well, then we are going to move on to travel pitfalls and things that you can do as a travel agent to help them avoid these particular pitfalls. Now, one thing that we can talk about, we have our retreat and we're going to be going to Cabo San Lucas. Yay, us, Cabo, Cabo, Cabo. I'm excited. But one of those things we want to talk about that people tend to forget about, and we're travel professionals. We need to be reminding our clients about passports. And of course, you're always like, oh yeah, I'm a professional, and I checked in with them about their passports. But it's really, really important to not just ask them, do you have a passport? You want to ask them, when does their passport expire? This is so key and so important, because when we take a passport number and we put it down, we're thinking they're great, right? But some destinations require 3 to 6 months remaining on that passport in order to travel and enter their country. And so someone will go, oh, I have a passport. And then, you're getting ready to go and get closer to the trip, and like a month before or a few weeks before, and you're like, okay, I'm just, sending you this checklist again. Let's go over your passport. When does your passport expire? I actually had someone whose passport was expiring in 2 weeks. And she said, well, I have a passport and it's a valid passport. And we had planned the trip for almost a year ahead of time. But what she neglected to remember is, as it got closer to the time for the trip, she needed to renew her passport. And because she waited so late to renew the passport, she wound up having to expedite the passport. She couldn't do a regular 6-week processing because she only had 2 weeks before she was due to leave. Now, in spite of me asking and asking, we are not required to get a copy of someone's passport, but you do want to remember to ask them, what is the date of expiration of your passport? It's really, really important. It's not just about, oh, I got the passport number and I know they had a valid passport, and granted, they may have had a valid passport when they first started booking a trip. Let's go here. Astrid is asking about the Olympics of 2020. And, they can get close since 2020 and think everything is great. And all of a sudden, the passport is due to expire in August 2020, and they're traveling in June 2020. There are some countries that will not allow you to enter because that passport is due to expire in 2 months. They need a full 3 to 6 months for you to enter their country. And so, when you first started planning in 2018, everything was great, right? Because the passport was valid, and it's still technically valid, but it has to be renewed. And it has to be renewed prior to them going, because they don't have enough float time on that passport, the 3 to 6 month period, for entry into that country. Now, imagine if you spent all this money to go on this trip to the Olympics and everything was great, and you thought everything was great, and you get to the airport, and this has happened. People get to the airport and discover they don't have enough time on their passport, and they won't be allowed to travel. So this is really, really important. Please be checking with your clients about their passports and the actual expiration date of that. If they need to do expedite a passport, it can be extremely costly. My daughter got her first and only passport because she got invited to go play in South Korea, and it was an honor to do so, but it was a last minute edition, and we did not know or anticipate that she would be going, and she did not have to pay to attend anything except for her airfare, and everything else was all hosted, but we had to get a passport because she was 15 at the time and didn't have a passport. And she had to get that passport within 2 weeks in order for them to issue her airfare and to get her a plane ticket. And so it cost us roughly $250 for me to get her passport. And passports, generally speaking, are like $110 to $140, but we had to pay to have it expedited. Then we had to pay for her photo, and then we paid a little extra for it to be shipped to us, and she actually got her passport in 1 week. My client, who is traveling this year because she forgot that it was expiring, cost her, and she couldn't go into the post office during post office hours to go do hers and get it expedited. She wound up having to go to a broker, and it cost her about $340 to get it expedited. They came to her, they took her documents, they processed everything. Then she had to go and actually make an appointment, and then they verified that it was her, and then the documents came to her in a week. But she couldn't even do the legwork, and it cost her about $340. So do be thinking about that. And then let's talk about people who go, I have a passport card. When you get a passport, they give you the option of either getting a passport or a passport card, or both. If you get a passport card, do not mistake that you cannot enter and exit some countries with a passport card. It still requires that you enter and exit the country with a passport. So people go, oh, I didn't know that, so I only got the passport card. Guess what's going to happen? They're going to have to go back and expedite a passport. We actually have a travel agent, a well-known travel agent, whose own daughter had to do this upon leaving to go on a cruise, and said, I have my passport card. And everybody was shocked because we were like, we've been talking about this for months. You have to get a passport. And she said, well, I didn't want to carry that because it was bulky. And so she only ordered the card. She missed the first day of the cruise because she had to go and get an expedited passport. So that's really, really important. You want to be reminding your clients that it's essential that they have a passport. The card is just something you can kind of carry around with an ID number for while you're walking around in a country. If you don't wish to carry your full-on passport, and you put your passport in a safe. And again, let's talk about safes when you're on vacation. Lots of safes are easy to break into. We have someone on the line who had a client who unfortunately had their things stolen while they were on vacation in another country. And people can easily get into some of those safes at hotels. You want to be encouraging your clients to get those, I call them wallets, but they're almost like fanny packs that go to the body. And you put your passport in it, and it has a screen function in there where people cannot like scan through and see your number. You want to encourage people to do that. How do you know if a country requires a passport to be valid within 3 to 6 months of a trip? Should I check the country's website? Yes, and you can Google that as well. I encourage you guys to always be looking. Like people are taking cruises, and there's this thing where people say, oh, if you're taking a cruise and you're only going to Mexico and you're leaving from the US and you're coming back in the US, you don't need a passport. Well, if you have to be medically expedited or have any type of treatment that's going to require you to get back to the United States quickly, it's much easier for you to come back to the United States with a passport than it is with a birth certificate that's certified and your state ID, because they have to validate that state ID and verify that that driver's license and birth certificate is actually valid versus your passport. They can tell quickly that that is a real document, and they will go on and let you be expedited quickly for medical attention or whatever your need was to get back into the United States. So that would be how you would check. You check in with that country. You can check in you can check in with the country directly. We have resources in our back office. The Department of, why did I just draw a blank? It's late, so I'm apologizing for that. But in our back office, if you go into resources, there's a spot that tells you what countries require visas, and it'll also give you some information on passports. And you can certainly check within the country that you are visiting and check with their embassy online, and it'll tell you what the requirements are for you to enter and depart that specific country. So now we're moving on to visas. Visas, not having proper visas can be a huge problem. But I'm going to go back because someone has posted a note. For client who gets married, do they have to update their passport? If they've updated their legal name, yes, they do. If they've kept their name, no, they don't. Your legal documents must carry your legal name. So if you have a driver's license that says Pamela Tate, but your passport says Pamela Tate Roger, and you're traveling with your driver's license, it has to read Pamela Tate. But if you bought an airplane ticket that said Pamela Tate Roger, they're going to say, what's this Tate Roger thing? Your legal documents say that your name is Tate. Or if you're married and now your name is Tate Roger, but you never changed over your passport, it would be, vice versa. You have to keep your documents, whatever your legal name is, that needs to now be your legal documents. So if you get married, yes. If you get divorced and decide you're changing your name back to your old name, yes, you need to update your passport. Whatever your legal name is, that's the name that should be on your documents. That's the name that you should be putting your airfare in for your flight. Hotels are not so sticklers on that. Your name just needs to match your credit card, generally speaking. But if you are traveling in and out of the country, you want to do that with the blessing of your legal name. It just makes life easier to get to and from where you're going. So if you have a birth certificate that says Pamela Tate, and you decide to travel with that, but your driver's license says Pamela Tate Roger, that could be a problem. So then that would be why you would have a passport that says Pamela Tate Roger. That's your legal name. Get it updated. Hope that answered that question. Visas, not having proper visas. When you leave for a country, you're expected to know what visas you need to be let in. You can find this information again online. Check in with the embassy that you are in the country that you are planning to visit. Don't be shocked when you get turned away at immigration without having proper visas. A lot of airports will allow you to purchase your visa there in the airport. Some countries don't require that you get a visa. Bali has a rule. If you go to Bali, you have, and you're there under 30 days, you're not required to get a visa. Some countries, the second you get off the plane, you need to have a visa. Some people want you to get your visa before you even get to the country. In some places, it's an economic thing. It contributes to their economy. Other places, it's their safeguard of who's coming and who's going, and they want that legal documentation done. And if that's the case, you want to make sure that you're allowing enough advance time to secure your proper visas. So if you don't know, again, Google is great. Looking that up, type in that country, and you can just type in simply something as simple as, does this country require a visa? So let's see. Do you need a visa to go to Tokyo from the US? And I'm going to put this on a screen share, so hold on. There we go. You all should be seeing this. Do you need a visa to go to Tokyo from the US? Okay, so here's a couple of things. Visit the Embassy of Japan's website for the most current visa information. Entry and exit. You must have a valid passport and onward return ticket for a tourist business visa, free stays for up to 90 days. And this came from the Japan International Information Bureau of Consular, meaning the consulate affairs. So let's click that. This is a simple Google search, right? And my computer is slow loading. I apologize. It loves Zoom and it hates Zoom. It slows down my speed. And so when you go into this website, it'll tell you right here what you need or what's needed. Japan, normal precautions for travel advisory. It's got typhoon updates, quick facts, passport validity, duration of intended stay, period of stay, vaccines, none are required, blank passport pages. One page is required for an entry stamp. So if your book is almost full, that's another thing you need to be watching out for. If your book is almost full, you might want to go on and renew, because the last thing you want to do is be like you're in Europe and you can kind of country skip when you're in Europe. So you can go into London and you can leave London and catch a train and maybe go over to Poland, or then go and fly back to France. Those stamps, you are required to have one page for entry. So if you get a lot of stamps by going back and forth between countries and you don't have enough stamp space in your book, guess what? That could be a problem. You want to make sure you have space in your passport as well. Back to Japan here, it says tourist visa is required, but it tells you not required for stays of less than 90 days. So if you are traveling there and you're going to be there on an extended vacation, say you're a news reporter and you're going to be covering the Olympics or some kind of world software forum, and you're going to be there for 4 months, it will require that you get a visa. But if you're under 4 months, you wouldn't. Or if you're under 3 months, actually, since it's saying 90 days. Currency restrictions for entry. Amounts equivalent to 1 million yen or above are subject to declaration. They want to know that you're bringing that kind of money into the country, which is funny. They don't have that type of requirement when people come into the States, which is why people tend to buy up everything when they come to the United States. But they want to know if we're carrying a lot of yen there for their country. So we can go back up here and U.S. passports. And I'm sorry, this is loading slow. So it tells you a lot of good basic information. How to apply or renew your passport. Fees for your passport. tracking your application. It'll let you know if it's processed or what's going on in that process. Your passport forms. These are the forms you need to fill out in order to get a passport. Where to apply, and you can click on here and it'll tell you where to go to apply, usually your U.S. postal system, but they do have agencies where you can do that, and they will come up with a center for you to do that. So let's talk about, again, where to apply. Right now, if you need to apply for an expedited passport, it says, I have a life or death emergency. See life or death emergency page. If it's less than 3 weeks, you can schedule an appointment at a passport agency or a center. And it says that's on June 8th or later. And it says you can only go to the actual appointment within 2 weeks of international travel. That's what we had to do for my daughter's trip. Less than 4 to 6 weeks, it says no reason is needed. You just do an expedited, you go to an acceptance facility, and if you need to renew, you can renew it by mail because you generally will get your passport under that time. There was a backlog earlier in the year because they had done a thing where they raised the price for passports, and so they had an onslaught of people doing renewals, but they have caught up at this time. So we're going to go back up. And let's see, international travel. Let's click on that and see what we have. One thing I always encourage you as well, if you are sending people out of the country, you want to make sure that that they know what's going on in the area that they're traveling. If there are any kind of security alerts, if there's any kind of world events going on in that area. So like they say, every traveler is unique. Learn more before you go. Travel to high-risk areas. We traveled to Seoul, Korea, and a couple of people were kind of like, what are you guys doing? And my daughter got to play for the Baseball for All Team USA All-Stars, which was an honor to go and represent her country. And we traveled with full-on U.S. security. So we had embassy meetings. We traveled with a delegation of bigwigs from around the U.S. as well as South Korea, and interpreters, as well as executives from the LG Corporation who sponsored the tournament. And so you want to make sure when you know that you're going somewhere, you want to make sure that you're prepared. Always, 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 and this is something that I do even as a travel agent, in your notes, include the information for their U.S. embassy to the country that they're traveling. If for some reason their passport is lost or stolen, they will need to get in touch with that U.S. embassy. And so you want to provide them with that information. And I also tell people to program the telephone number into their cell phone. Do that while they're here in the States, while they're safe, because if anything should happen, they don't panic going, where did I put that phone number? The phone number is always in their cell phone. Of course, you can discard the number when you return home, but I highly recommend it. It's just a safety precaution. You can go and get emergency passports. If for some reason all your money and stuff is stolen, I encourage everyone, when you're traveling, you should always have a photo copy of your passport and have it accessible in your email. Meaning you can always access email even if you go to a Wi-Fi or to a hotel, or if you get to the U.S. Embassy, it needs to be in an email address that you can retrieve it and pull up that document so they know what was the passport number, what country was the passport issued from. And then that way, if they need to replicate it, or if you need to get an emergency passport, the U.S. Embassy would have your passport number. They would know that you did actually have a valid passport, and they will assist you. Even if you've had all of your money stolen, they do something where they will pay for an emergency documents to be created. Sometimes they will make you, depends on what country you're in, they will either make you get a family member to pay for it, and you'd be in contact with them for them to pay for the documents to be recreated, or they will put it on it's a document like a promissory note, where you're promising that you are going to pay this back in order for them to assist you with getting the documents you need in order to travel. That's generally speaking if someone has stolen from you. So I'm going to go back to passports because I believe it might be on this document. Reporting your lost or stolen passport. And if anybody has questions or anything, do please feel free to say something. Speak up now. Now's a great time to do so. So this is kind of like if you're traveling, if you're outside the U.S., here we go. Contact your nearest U.S. embassy or consulate to replace your passport. And in the frequently asked questions, and I'm trying to think, I saw this on a website many years ago, what a U.S. citizen should do if the passport is lost or stolen abroad. You will have to replace the passport before returning to the U.S. Contact your U.S. embassy for assistance. Contact information for the U.S. Embassy and Consulate is also available in country information pages. Again, we want to have that number with you for the U.S. Embassy anyway, and anything doing with your passport. Again, keep a copy just so you know what that number was. Also, leave a copy back at home so that a friend or family member, your emergency contact, has access to what that document looked like and what it was. You'll be directed where to go to obtain a photo for your replacement passport. And in most cases, you will need to get a passport photo prior to your arrival there at the consulate. And then it says, if you are notified by a relative or friend traveling abroad that their passport's been stolen, you may wish to contact the Office of Overseas Citizens Services. And here is that number, 1-888-407-4747. I'm going to type this in a chat box. The number is 888, 407-4747. And that is the number if you have your documents stolen or lost while you are out of the country. Now, fees charged to replace lost or stolen passports abroad. This is what I was talking about. Normal passport fees are collected from the applicant, but if someone has stolen your money and all of your documents, which can and does happen, unfortunately, and it really sucks if it does, applicants that are unable to pay the fee will be asked to provide names of a person they feel would be able to assist them financially. See our information about financial assistance to U.S. citizens abroad and sending money overseas to U.S. citizens in case of an emergency. Now, in extraordinary circumstances, such as an applicant was a victim of a serious crime, or the applicant is a victim of a disaster, like say there was a mudslide or something like that, the applicant does not have and cannot reasonably be expected to obtain money to pay the fees before continuing travel, the passport fee may be waived and a limited validity passport will be issued. When the person applies for a full validity passport upon their return to the U.S., the regular passport fee will be charged for their replacement. So, they're not trying to leave you stuck in another country, but they do want to assist you as best they can. And JG says, I have my clients photocopy and keep their carry on to help expedite it as need be. And also travel insurance rep will assist with funds. Most definitely. And again, y'all know me. I am the travel insurance queen. I do not sell anyone any type of travel outside of the country without travel insurance. I just don't do it. It's included in their pricing, and I make it sound like you don't have an option. And I've only had one person who really, really tried to not do it. And ironically enough, when they tried not to do it, we had the hurricanes that we had last season, and they were getting ready to travel. And I shared with them firsthand experience. The Grown and Sexy cruise got stuck in the middle of the ocean for 4 additional days. And my cousin is from Hawaii, and she was stuck in the ocean for 4 additional days on top of the 7 days for their cruise. And she had travel insurance, and many people around her did not. and the difference was absolutely crazy. She got all her money back. That was one thing. When she got on land, she got a hotel because then she had already obviously missed her flights. And so she got VIP treatment, and she had friends who were stuck in Florida for another 2 days on top of the 4 days that they had been sitting in the middle of the ocean trying to avoid all these hurricanes that were going around them. So, you definitely want to encourage people to have credit their insurance. Do you still sell travel insurance if the customer has a card that provides it? I do. I would ask them to ask what is provided by their card. Just because they have a policy doesn't mean it's a good policy. Like if it's American Express and it's one of the higher tier American Expresses, that might be a great policy. But I would certainly leave it to them and ask them, does it cover lost and stolen baggage? Does it cover full value replacement for your vacation in the event of a natural disaster or medical necessity that you need to cancel? Does it cover medical coverage for you to be expedited from another country to return home for medical treatment? Because if it does not, it can be up to $20,000 to $40,000 just to get back to the United States if you're required to travel with a nurse. So these are things that we never think about, but when they happen, it's absolutely crazy. Even on the company retreat, they had someone who had a stroke on the ship. And thank goodness they had insurance, because they charge you $500 to see the doctor on a ship if you don't have insurance. Now, most of us have insurance at home, and you may have a great policy, but when you're traveling, do they have a Kaiser where you're going? If you're in a Kaiser network, how are you going to see somebody? Nobody takes your insurance. I have Anthem Blue Cross. My international coverage looks nothing like what it looks like when I'm at home. So I do not play with travel insurance. And even in myself, when we were in South Korea, we had a pretty incredible journey. We got to the last 2 hours of our trip. We're in the airport. Our interpreter had just left us, and South Korea fired missiles into North Korea while we were sitting in the airport. We had travel insurance. I called immediately because I was like, oh my God, we are sitting in an airport like sitting ducks. And if we need to leave this airport, we have now checked out of our hotel. We don't have car access. I called my travel insurance company, and they were like, okay, well, we need to see what we're going to do and get you guys set up in a hotel. This is an emergency situation. They told us we could leave within 20 minutes. I have never seen people load onto a plane that quickly in my life. We had 372 people load onto a plane with luggage in less than 20 minutes, and we were up in the air getting out of there. When people are motivated to move, they move. So I don't play with travel insurance, just because medical, your loss protection of things that you own that were in your possession or that you've purchased to travel with, and of course replacement value of your trip. So I don't. I tell them, if they say they have a policy, have them check the policy, and it's an extra $69 to sometimes up to like $210, depending on how long you're going and where you're going. It's definitely worth the investment. Vacations are an investment anyway, and you don't want to lose your investment money on your vacation with something that you have no control over, i.e. nature, theft, baggage getting lost with the airport, those types of things. So I hope that answered the question. And I'm going to move off passports because we went from passports to visa. So everybody now has that number of where to call. So again, we're still going back into travel mistakes that you can help your clients avoid. And so now we're on research. Research about the area that you're sending your clients. What's the weather like? What type of food is their main cuisine? If you're sending someone to a country where they have a high fish diet, i.e. shellfish, and your client's allergic to shellfish, like myself, you might want to be thinking about, giving them options so that they know where they should be looking for food. They should probably stay away from those street vendors, because a lot of those tend to cook the same foods on the same grill, and that can cause someone who's allergic to shellfish to have an anaphylactic shock issue. And so you want to be thinking about those types of things as well. As a travel agent, our job is not just to research, but we want to make sure that our clients are doing well, that they're healthy, and that we are providing them with as much information as we can. Patricia, I'm going to mute you because somebody's got a little extra noise coming out their phone. So you want to make sure that you're providing them with as much information. And how far away are they staying from the American consulate? Make sure that you send them with the address to the American consulate. And it sounds really dramatic, and I'm not trying to make it sound really dramatic, but being prepared for an emergency will definitely make your client feel like, wow, they went the extra mile. They wanted to make sure that I'm safe. They wanted to make sure that I have precautionary guidelines in place, and that's really important. Okay. The next one is read reviews. How many of you would send someone on a trip and not read a review about the hotel? My friend said it was a great hotel. Well, that's great. Your friend said it was a great hotel. And they went and visited that hotel and they had a great time in 1989. Well, it's 2018. I'm sure they've remodeled since then, but suppose that they're no longer that 4-star hotel, and they've built like 12 4-star hotels since then. And, the newer hotels have better features. Always, always, always read the reviews of the hotels, your tour companies, transportation companies as well. It's as simple as TripAdvisor. You can check on Google. Again, Google is your best friend. Travel buddy Dwayne Macklin and myself, when we first started here at Evolution, we used to be like, Google's my boo. He calls Google his wife, and I say Google's my boo. I check Google for everything. Even if it's a reputable company and I've been there, I check it again because it may have been fabulous when I went 2 years ago, but hurricanes hit, people get bed bugs, there can be an infestation of crabs. You just never know. You should always, always, always be doing reviews and checking the reviews of where you're sending people. I also do something that some people think is a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but I don't care. I do it. I really try and vet and be thorough in checking my companies. If I know someone who says they went, I go, oh, great, you went. When did you go? And they'll tell me the date. And I said, that's awesome. And then I'll check Google. And then I'll say, okay, let me check TripAdvisor. And then I'll look and see the most current reviews. And then I go 2 steps farther than that. I go to my social media. I'm in a group called Black Travel Movement, and there are about 350 people in this group. And I'm just going to put it out there. Sometimes things are different for people of color when they travel than it is for other people. And so it's good to hear our perspective. We can be picky about some things that other people are not picky about. We also have service issues where sometimes we're not treated as well as other people. And I will go into that group and I will post a question and say, hey, who's been to Jamaica? And wait and see what people type. And I'll go, hey, did you stay at this hotel? And I wait and see what people type about. And I go, how was your experience there? And I'll wait and see what people type. Or I'll go in the search box and I'll type in the name of that hotel in that country and see if anything pops up. And if people loved it, that's awesome. And if people say they had a great experience, that's awesome. And if people say they had a horrible experience, I immediately will not book there. And this is me. I immediately will choose not to book there, because if someone has had a bad experience and they took the time to write that they had a bad experience, particularly if they're a person of color, I'm not going to put my clients in that predicament where they are not going to feel welcome or have to deal with any kind of bad, ill feelings, because this is an investment and we are creating a memory that's supposed to be a positive memory. And if they already have a record that's showing that they have not catered to the client or a person of color who, again, is spending the same amount of money as somebody else, I'm not going to book that. And that's just me. And some people will go, wow, that's a really general or kind of an awkward stance, but we just need to be thinking about our clients, and they should receive all-star treatment. They're spending their money. We're servicing them and we're trying to create positive memories. And if it's just something where you got a complainer, and you can tell when you have a complainer, but if someone tells me they went into a room and there was a cockroach in their room, and they told the front desk that there was a cockroach in their room, and they said, oh, we're sorry, and we're going to move you to another room, and they comp you the first night because you had to deal with that, or they send you to a special dinner because you had to deal with that. That's a nice way to do it. If someone tells you, oh, well, that happens here sometimes, you'll be fine, that's a problem. Our first convention, we stayed at a hotel. And David was funny. We stayed at a hotel our first convention, and it was a great hotel, and they had a newer wing and they had an older wing, and we were in the older wing. And unfortunately, in our older wing, our first night, we discovered bed bugs. And I had Miss Dee Dee and Patrice and me all in one room. And I am a diva, but they are grand divas. And Miss Patrice Vance is the leader of the divas. And let me just tell y'all, baby, they was moving heaven to get us out of that room. But one of the staff had made a comment to Miss Dee Dee, and under normal circumstances, it would have been fine. But it was his attitude when he said it, and she just lost it. And it's those types of interactions where if staff aren't trained to be diplomatic or treat people in an appropriate manner under duress, those are not the types of places that I want to send my clients, because I want them to have great experiences, and I know all of you do as well. So you can never do too much research, and keep reading. If you get a good thing and you hear a great thing from one of your clients, by all means, go on TripAdvisor and say, hey, I sent a client here. They were top tier. They remembered my client's birthday. They went above and beyond. Send praise as well as complaints. I think we complain too much in the world, but if you hear a complaint and it seems like it's a valid complaint or it's not handled well, I would not send clients back to that location. Another thing, moving on, reconfirming your bookings. You'll notice that flights will change. And if you are the agent, sometimes they'll send you notifications that things have changed. And sometimes they'll send it to the travel agent and not send it to the client. Anytime you get notification that something has changed in your reservations, I don't care if the client is listed, inform your client. And they're going to, oh, I got that notification. Your response is just great. I'm glad you got it. I wanted to make sure you got it. Because there's nothing worse than you getting notifications and your client not getting notifications. So always double check and make sure that you speak with them and say, hey, I just got this notification telling me that your flight is now going to be leaving from gate blank instead of gate blank. Because if they got to the airport on time but arrived at the wrong gate and then now have to move to another gate, that's going to be stressful. You don't want them to be stressed, and it's a bad way to start off or end a vacation. So anytime you get notifications, make sure you are reconfirming that and letting them know, and let them know where to check in. Reconfirm your transportation driver's arrangements. They usually tell you to do that within 48 hours prior to someone being picked up or dropped off. Do it. Even if they're already in another country, just give yourself peace of mind. Double check and say, I am confirming that they are going to be picking up my client at 7 p.m. on Sunday because their flight leaves at 10 p.m. on Sunday, and I need to make sure they get to the airport on time. I'm just reconfirming someone will be picking them up. Or contact them and say, hey, we arranged for a special dinner. And it's already paid for, taken care of, but I'm confirming that on Thursday, July the 26th, we are going to be having a special dinner for my clients. I want to confirm that that is actually being done. Check in with your client and send them their booking information and tell them they have 24 hours to confirm it without penalty. And after that, they're going to have to pay if they need to make any changes. I had someone who did a booking, and we had one leg that we took care of, and they decided they didn't want to fly directly from where they were. And they decided to take an alternate route because they didn't want to fly on a specific carrier. People can do whatever they choose to do, but they didn't confirm that with me, the travel agent. And so I was on the San Francisco end for them to go forward with their journey, and they got their luggage lost en route from their original flight getting to San Francisco. So they're calling me and they're going off, and I'm like, I was not responsible for that portion of your journey. Your portion started here in San Francisco with me. We can try and move things around and change flights and try and get you here to make sure you get to San Francisco on time now to leave from where I did your journey. But, if there are fees involved with that, that's not my responsibility as the travel agent. You want to reconfirm booking. And if someone has booked something on their own, get that information too. It's just important to write it down. And this is something else we should talk about. If they have done any portion of anything by themselves and you did not book it, but they have travel insurance, you need that information, because if it's not submitted to the travel insurance company, it's not going to be covered. It's only going to be covered for what you submitted when you did your travel insurance. So here's an example. I booked a cruise. We're going from LA to Mexico. So I immediately book it and it's covered because I booked it when I booked the cruise. Well, they decided they needed to fly from San Francisco to Long Beach, right? So they booked their own flight. I don't have a problem with their booking of their own flight, but they didn't tell me the flight number. They didn't call the insurance company. They didn't tell me to call the insurance company. Plus, I didn't have any flight information, right? Is that covered from them going from San Francisco to LAX? No. No one has the flight information. No one called the insurance carrier. No one inquired as to whether there was an additional fee for adding that section onto their travel trip. And if the insurance carrier doesn't know that you did it, they don't have to cover it. So if your bags get lost or stolen between San Francisco and LA prior to you getting on that ship, who's responsible for your luggage? You are, meaning the client, because the travel agent didn't add it into your insurance. The client didn't add it into the insurance, and the insurance company is not aware that you even did additional travel prior to the start of your travel insurance policy starting on the cruise. So it's important to get that information from your client, and you want to do that and include it in an itinerary. Write everything down, even if you didn't book it, and put a little asterisk on it so you know, hey, I wasn't responsible for this flight. So if for some reason you get bumped off this flight or something happens with this flight, you booked it. You're going to have to deal with it, and I don't have a problem with that. But you did inform me that you added it. I did call the insurance carrier, and it's now covered. So you can call the insurance carrier and they will take care of it, or you didn't call the insurance carrier, it's not covered, and I will assist you as best I can. But if you now have to pay an upgrade to fly on a different flight to get to where you need to be on time, unfortunately, your client would be responsible for that. So those are things that we don't tend to think about that we have to think about. And so when you're writing up that information, like I said, how are you getting down to LA to get to your cruise? You want to write that down, check it in and put it with their booking information, and tell them, when you send them that, tell them they have 24 hours to confirm that without penalty. Because sometimes you'll notice somebody thought they were flying out on one day and forgot about after midnight the time changes, and they actually are flying out on the wrong day. Those types of things can be changed within 24 hours, but after 24 hours, there's a cost associated with that. And unfortunately, if they didn't check their tickets, they're going to be responsible for that cost, not you, because you can no longer change it without penalty. Have your client send back an email or a fax with their signature that they have reviewed their registration. This is extremely important. Now we're talking liability. If they don't check their own documents, you've checked it, but we're human and we can make errors, which is why it's really important that they reconfirm their own booking. So you want to get them to write something back or have some type of verbiage written saying you have 24 hours to confirm this without penalty, and after that you will have to pay for any changes that need to be made. And by not responding to this email within 24 hours, you accept and understand that all additional fees must be paid by you. even with or without signature, because if they don't do it and you have it in writing and you've sent it and they don't respond, that's back on them now. Let's talk about double checking your plans prior to departure. As I was just saying, we are not perfect. We make errors. And so when doing that, you want to take one last look over everything. Make sure that your dates are all correct. You know exactly which airport or which train station that they need to go to. You want to make sure that it's written exactly where they are to be picked up. Mistaken flight times is one of the most common issues with booking travel, particularly that around midnight time when you say, oh, I'm going to take a red eye, and you say 11:59 and you're leaving on Wednesday, but you're arriving on Thursday. That's not 24 full hours, but if you're leaving at 12:01 and you're thinking you're leaving at 12:01 Wednesday, that could actually be 12:01 on Thursday. You would have lost a day because you're not going to arrive until Friday. It's really important to pay attention to those things and make sure that your dates are coordinating and that your calendar is showing if you're leaving on a Wednesday, you're arriving on a Thursday. But if it's like 12:01 and you're thinking I'm leaving Wednesday night at 12:01 a.m., that's actually Thursday morning at 12:01 a.m., meaning you're going to arrive on Friday. It's really, really, really important, even if it means calling back in to the airlines to make sure that you've confirmed it, and review all of your details with a fine-tooth comb. Sometimes when you get these bigger trips where people have a lot of moving parts, ask a fellow travel agent to review it with you to make sure that you have everything written out meticulously as it's going to be for that client. Printing and saving the details of your trip. I like to print things out, but sometimes, if people are doing stuff at the last minute, you can't print things out. But if you've made specific plans, like their hotel and dinner reservations, or you need directions for something, be sure and save it and leave it in an all-in-one easy access location. Tell them that they need to save it in a folder in their phone, in a Google Drive, and save it in this one folder in their phone. Or the notes section where you can type up everything like, departing JFK at 12 p.m. noon, arriving at Florida at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, will be picked up by Super Shuttle, reservation number blank, blank, and blank. Super Shuttle will take me to the Doubletree Holiday Biscayne Hotel. Your check-in time is at 3 p.m. Reservation number blank, 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 staying in the condo towers. On that night, dinner reservation at the hotel for 50th wedding anniversary. Have all of that in one spot. Keep it as a running note in your cell phone, even if you've printed it, because sometimes we get lost from our papers. But if you have it in your phone, you can always go back to it and know, this was my reservation number. I'm sorry, I don't have my printout, but this was my reservation number. This car was supposed to pick me up at 3:30 and it's not here. This is my reservation number. Or, my reservation number for the hotel is blank and my credit card is on file, but here's my credit card to identify that I'm here now. So you want to make sure that they have printed material, but you also want to make sure they have something saved in their phone. If for some reason they can't get back to the printed documents that they left in their hotel room because of time, they still have access to that information. So send it to them in an email and mark it of high importance so that they know that they can access that document. Collect all of the travel information from your client. And again, this goes back to if they've made any portion of their travel arrangements on their own, get that information, because if you do not call and add that additional travel arrangement into their travel protection plan, it is not, I repeat, capital N, capital O, capital T. It is not covered. So those bags that you lost between here and going to JFK, to leave from JFK to go to Paris, they don't know anything about your bags getting lost. And your insurance isn't going to cover it. So when you get to Paris, you'll be in Paris without suitcases, no clothes or anything else that you had, and they are not obligated to give you any money for that inconvenience. You're just kind of, for lack of a better word, out of luck. So make sure you're getting all of the travel arrangements from your client. Setting your expectations too high. This is one of those travel mistakes that you can help your clients avoid. Now, we always try and do this. Be honest with your clients. Be honest with your clients. Sometimes clients, we're selling memories and we're helping them create memories. And sometimes people are balling on a budget, and sometimes people are just balling out of control and have that money. But if someone is balling on a budget and they're expecting 5-star treatment, and they're booked at a 3-star resort, let them know what to expect. If they're in Europe and they want to pay $42 a night, more than likely they're not going to have a private bathroom, because that's a common thing in Europe to have communal bathrooms. You might not wind up with a bathroom in your room, and that was based upon your budget. I always share that with them prior to booking it. Nothing is going to be as perfect as they make it seem on your brochure, but I do really, really stress reality. I send them a web link so that they can see what's going on at that hotel and what it's supposed to look like. And I let them know, you are in a 3-star property. It's going to be clean. It's going to have decent dining, but is it going to be like going to a Ritz-Carlton? No. It is not. And they should not expect that. Make sure you also allow free time for them to do things on their own, particularly if they're traveling with a group. Sometimes you're traveling with groups and everybody is not like-minded, or some people want to do a bunch of walking and other people want to do a bunch of lounging. Make sure there's free time allowed for people to do what it is that they want to do. Every traveler brings their own expectations and their own desires to a trip. And we want to honor that because it is their own individual experience. But we also want to honor that I spent the same amount of money as the next person spent. And just because we have different expectations shouldn't mean that one person's expectations will make everybody else's experience be a miserable experience. So communicate upfront and honestly, letting them know, hey, that's an a la carte item. If you decide you want to go to the waterfalls, that's $90, and everybody might not want to go. And it's okay that they don't want to go. But if you want to go, there's a free day. You're welcome to do that. I'm happy to connect you with that tour company. They'll be happy to take you to the Dunn's Waterfall, and you can go spend your $90, and the rest of these people are cool, chilling back at the hotel in the resort, getting their drinks poolside for free because it's included and they're all inclusive. It's okay that everybody doesn't want to do the same thing, and just be really honest with all of your group members about that. Now, here's one that is so simple and common that you would think everybody does it, but we all forget, because when you're excited and you're ready to go on a trip, you just don't think about things sometimes. It's like, oh my God, I'm so excited, I'm going on this vacation. Always pack a change of clothes in your carry-on bag. Always, 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 always pack a change of clothes in your carry-on bag. That means underwear, a full set of underwear, a pair of slacks or shorts, and a shirt. And make sure you have any of your must-have items in your carry-on, i.e., you must have your medicine, then you must carry it on the plane. Because if you lose your suitcase, it's bad enough you won't have clothes, but imagine being in a foreign country and you have none of your medicine. That is so important. Make sure you take those really important things with you on the plane in your carry-on. You want to make sure that you're not putting things like your iPad under the plane unless you have to, i.e. traveling in the Middle East. Your iPad should be with you on the plane. Why? Because somebody might take it. Your jewelry. I would never pack my prized jewelry because we're going to my cousin Fifi's wedding. I'm not going to pack my good jewelry and put it up under the plane. I'm going to pack it and it's going to come with me on the plane, even if I'm not wearing it. Why? I know where it is. It's in the overhead bin up over my head, and it's safe and it's with me. So that's one of those things you want to remind people of. Always carry a full set of clothes. If your luggage gets lost from you, it's okay. You'll have a backup plan because you'll have access to something to wear for immediate consumption. But all those expensive things, if you don't have to take it, I encourage you not to take it. You don't need to take a bunch of, expensive jewelry to go on a vacation. Now, if you're taking the jewelry and you're going for an event where it's required, then of course you want to take your grandmother's jewels for your aunt's wedding. I mean, those types of things make sense. But if you're just going to Tahiti and decide you want to be dripping in a bunch of bling, number one, it's hot. You're going to be sweaty. Number two, it makes you a sitting duck to be robbed. And you can keep that type of stuff at home. So you do want to share that information with people who are traveling, because sometimes people look at traveling as just being an extension of being at home. And when traveling, we do have certain precautions that we should take. Another thing that we can totally avoid and help our clients to avoid, tell them it's really important not to overpack, not just because you have to pull all that stuff around. You get charged for it. Nobody wants to go to the airport and have to pay an additional $50 in each direction for suitcases. You don't need to pack 12 pairs of shoes for a 5-day trip. Comfortable pair of shoes, a pair of tennis shoes, and a pair of dress shoes or two for the evening. Encourage them to use e-packing cubes, those e-bags. It's a great way to package your clothing and do it efficiently and utilizing all the space in your bags. Tell them to pack an empty duffel bag where they can fill up their souvenirs in that duffel bag to return home with it. You can carry that on. You want to tell them there's not much space to free up. If by leaving some things behind that you don't particularly need, but you do want to discourage people from overpacking, because overpacking can really result in a lot of additional money for things that you really didn't want to spend money on anyway. Remember, when you're getting on a flight, and if you're carrying it in your carry-on bag, it can't be more than 2 ounces. You don't know how many times I see people have to throw away their full-size bottle of lotion, their hair stuff in full-size bottles. It's cool if you want to take it, wrap it up in a plastic Ziploc bag and put it in your checked luggage. Because if you try to carry it on the plane, TSA is going to open that bag and they're going to dump it. Do you want to dump $25 lotion or $13 hair gel or your favorite hair product because you forgot it was a full-size bottle? Those things need to be in your checked luggage, not your carry-on luggage. And it's a bad way to start vacation, because then you go on vacation, you have no hair supplies, or you don't have your favorite lotion, and then you get there and you're looking around going, gosh, where's a Walgreens, where's a Walmart? I need to buy my utensils or my toiletries all over again because I packed the wrong size. Another thing to think about is too much time in transit. It's great to have these vacations where you go to and fro, but if you're spending too much time in transit, you're actually losing time. I.e., if you're going to Paris and you decide you want to trek across Europe on a train, and it takes you a day and a half to get somewhere on a train, that was just a day and a half of you just sitting on a train. You didn't get to see anything. You didn't get to enjoy anything. You've lost a day of vacation. You want to be thinking about that. Not every trip can cohese well together. So make sure that if you are booking an early morning or a late night journey, do that, because you want to avoid spending an entire day at an airport or an entire day at a train terminal. Nothing worse than losing a day in transit. If you're leaving at 10 o'clock at night and you're going to arrive at 7 in the morning, that's great. You know why? That's peak sleep time. You're not technically losing any time. But if you're losing daylight hours, you've just lost a day to sightsee and experience something, right? So you want to make sure that if you're doing transit between countries, do it in the evening where it's power down time. You can read a book or you can sleep, where you weren't going to be able to go and see the Louvre during the nighttime anyway. So if you're traveling to get to Paris at night, it doesn't matter because you didn't miss anything. All those attractions were closed. But when you get there in that morning, it's a brand new day, you're refreshed, and you can go and experience that with no problems. Also, make sure you make enough time for connections, connecting flights. I have a friend who hates connecting flights, and she does everything to avoid it. And she's always like, I don't want to wait in the airport longer than an hour. And I'm going, I don't recommend that because it sends you rushing from flight to flight. You should always make sure your layover is between at least 2 to 3 hours for connecting flights, particularly if this is an international flight. You know why? You still have to go through customs. And allowing too little time is a mistake, and you can actually miss your flight. And even if it's 15 minutes, you'll be stuck. And if you're stuck, you obviously have missed your flight and you have to figure it out. So sometimes it's okay to go with a longer layover. And if you're doing the longer layover, there are some airports where you can actually do airport tours. You can do city tours. If you go to Atlanta, we went to Jamaica through Atlanta, and I had a great time. I did, I think it was 10-hour layover. Somebody said 10-hour layover. I got to go through Atlanta. We rented a car. We got to sightsee. I had never been to Atlanta. Use things to your advantage. Take advantage of that time. Also, we're going to talk about negotiating taxi rates. Something weird just happened, everybody. Hold on for a second. My TV turned on automatically. So I apologize for that. It's like, what is that noise? It was recording and it turned itself on. Negotiate taxi rates beforehand. Many countries don't have metered taxis. You will discover this, and it's absolutely crazy. So you'll get in the car and you'll hop in and you take off, and you're like, how much is this? And they'll go, $20 for you. $20? I'm just going, a mile. Or why does this cost so much? Before you get in a taxi, ask them, how much is it to go to blank? Because taxi drivers have you in the car, and at that point, they're going to rip you off. If you give anybody the opportunity here, they do it as well, except for we have meters, and we have Uber, and those are metered as well. But you want to ask them, hey, I'm going here. How much does that cost? And if it seems like it's high, it's probably high. Then go to the next one and ask them. And if the second one says it's around the same price as the first, then pretty much that's the rate. You can check also with your hotel and say, hey, I'm interested in getting a cab. How many minutes does it take to get from here to Times Square? And they'll tell you, it's about such and such number of minutes. How much is that normally for a cab? And they'll say, you shouldn't pay more than $12. So you get in a cab and say, hey, I'm going to Town Square. How much is that? He says $20. Say, no, thanks. Step out the cab. Then they'll go, no. I can do it for you at about $12. Okay, I'll do $12 with you, but I'm not going to pay you $20 for what I know costs $12. So ask your concierge, ask the hotel staff, ask people, generally, how much is it for a taxi to go from blank to blank? Another item, get your foreign currency, or at least a little bit of your foreign currency, at home, so that when you arrive at your country or your destination, you have a little bit of that cash in your hand and you don't have to convert it at the airport. Airports conversion rates tend to be a little more expensive than it is in town. So you want to try and avoid, if at all possible, the airport. Some countries, the airport is very fair. In other countries, it is not. You can order your currency for the location that you're attending 1 to 2 weeks in advance from your bank at home. They don't charge you an exchange rate. It's just dollar for dollar. You give them $200, they're going to give you the $200 equivalent of cash for the country that you're traveling to. We went and exchanged money for Korean money, and I think it was about a week before we left, and Chase called us and said our cash was in. We picked it up. We had cash for tips as soon as we got there. We were able to buy a couple of things at the airport to eat while we were waiting for the rest of the team to arrive. And then at that point, you ask at your hotel or ask people around and say, hey, who has the best exchange rate in town? Should I get this money from the airport, or do you think I should get it from my hotel, or should I go to a local bank? Now, you can withdraw cash from the ATMs at the airport. The question is it a favorable rate? So you want to be thinking about these things and researching them prior to doing so. Another travel mistake to help your clients avoid, and you should be doing it for yourself as well. If you are traveling, and I don't care if it's just you're going to your next state, contact your bank immediately and let them know that you will be traveling, where you are traveling to, and that you will be using your credit card or your debit card. Because what will happen is the second you get out of California and I go to use my Chase card, I get a fraud alert. And what happens with fraud alerts is they will lock up your money. And if it is the weekend, that means you will go an entire weekend with no money. That's a problem, right? Always alert your bank. Say, hey, we're going to be traveling to Arizona this weekend. I'm going to not just be in Phoenix. We're going to drive from Phoenix and we're going to go to Flagstaff and we're going to go to Sedona. And I just wanted to make sure that you were aware. And please put a travel alert on my card. My daughter does a lot of traveling with her baseball team. And before she goes anywhere, she is now aware to call her bank and say, hey, I have my debit card. I'm going to Kissimmee, Florida, or I'm going to be in Daytona Beach, Florida, or wherever she's traveling, because she doesn't want her money to get locked up. And it just lets them know that, hey, when this charge pops up and it says that they were in San Francisco, i.e. at the airport, and then 6 hours later, the card is spending money in Florida, they're like, hey, that's clearly fraud, right? Let your bank know what you're doing. Also, that way they won't lock out your account when you need to get your cash. Really important. Also, think about what card you're going to use when you are traveling. Some cards will charge you a 3 to 4% international transaction fee, plus the $2 or $3 that they charge for you to use money outside of your network, to get money outside of your network from a different bank. So you want to look at cards that have no transaction fees if you use it for travel, and ask your bank, hey, I'm going to such and such. Do you think I should get a bunch of cash? Which I don't recommend because cash can be lost or stolen. Take some cash, but always have a card available. And just talk to your bank and see what those rates are, and if those can be waived. And then also, this is a huge one. Get an international cell phone plan, or either get a SIM card from the airport when you arrive at your destination. This is so important because international fees can kill you. We went on a cruise and left out of Long Beach, and I was sitting at the Long Beach pier. And this is something that I didn't know. Once you get to the Long Beach pier, you are considered in international water. And what happens at that point? Any phone call that you receive, any text message that you make is now considered, quote, roaming. It is now an international call, even though you are sitting at the pier in Long Beach, or you are sitting at the pier in Miami, Florida, or you are sitting at the pier in New Orleans. That is considered international water, and those international charges begin immediately. You can't just turn off your phone in a different country and think that it's not going to charge you a phone bill. It's going to charge you a phone bill. I actually had added on my international plan, and I hadn't set it up on the phone yet because we hadn't left the Long Beach pier. So we go to drive off from the pier, and the boat starts moving, and I sit down for dinner, and I get a text message, and it said I had $150 in telephone charges. And I'm like, holy crap, I have an international plan, and why is this ticking up on my phone bill? I pull my phone out immediately, and they're like, oh, you forgot to flip your button over to go into your international thing. I hadn't set it up and activated. I said, I am literally still in the water at Long Beach. And they said, well, that is actually international waters. Thank God they removed that from the bill because I had already paid them $30 for the entire month that the international plan was. And they removed it, but $150. And all I had done was talk to my daughter and told her I made it to the ship. I text messaged my son to let him know I had made it to the ship. And I had a 5-minute phone call with my mom to let her know what to do while I was gone with my kids. And $150 later, I was just like completely blown away. Take care of your international cell phone plans. And before you hit a pier, make sure you have activated it on your phone. It's better to be safe than sorry. Also, before boarding the plane, put your phone in airplane mode to avoid those unwanted charges. If you need a phone or data while you're away, be sure and negotiate that plan with your carrier. And also research buying a SIM card when you arrive as well. We did an international plan when we got to Korea so that we would be set since we'd be there for a week. But what you can do is purchase SIM cards. And we had one of the ladies purchased a SIM card for $10 at the airport. She just swapped out her SIM card. She put it in, and all her data was covered on that SIM card for free. So she had no additional charges when she came back home. And my last item is do the service for your clients. It just goes that extra mile, and I'm sure most of you are doing it, and if not, please start this practice. Tell your clients to install the WhatsApp application on their cell phone, and make sure that the people that are traveling with them, as well as people at home, download it as well. It allows you to communicate via telephone or text and send pictures and videos for free. WhatsApp is owned by Facebook, but it's a great application. And I tell them, and I call them first. I'm usually their first call, and I say, I wanted to make sure you've installed this in your phone. Did you make it to your airport on time? Have a great trip. I'm available if you need me. You can contact me through WhatsApp at no additional charges. I'm available. It lets them know that you're with them on this trip. And if they have a problem, they can contact you. I use it with everybody, but I used it specifically. I had a honeymoon couple who went to Morocco for their honeymoon, and the husband planned the trip and the wife didn't know where they were going. So she got to JFK and she had no idea where they were going. And then when they went to take off, they announced they were going to Morocco. And so she's all in tears and excited because she had no idea where I had planned for them to go. And she got on her WhatsApp and she's like, oh my God, I cannot believe we're going to Morocco. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And she contacted me every day. She's like, the hotel is lovely. The dinner that you planned was lovely. We had a problem with our driver. Then I called back to the carrier and talked to the company that we had booked the driving with and said, hey, can you guys deal with this issue? And this is the same person who's going to be taking them back to the airport because he needs to make sure that he's being a little more time conscious because they actually missed a connection with a friend that they were supposed to meet out there who was traveling as well. So you just want to let them know that you're there and you can be a phone call away. It's that extra customer service that brings you repeat customers. And that trip has been documented on Facebook and has brought me many clients in addition to repeat travel with them because they did like that type of, for lack of a better word, almost like concierge service, just knowing that I'm available if anything is going on, if they need any additional assistance, that I was just a phone call away. It's a free app, and it let them know that they can contact me. And so they did utilize that because I was contacting them as well. And so those are my travel mistakes that you want to help your clients avoid. And you guys are awful quiet tonight. Does anybody have any questions or any feedback or anything they would like to ask? Everybody's still awake. I know Natasha. Yes.
I have a question. Can you please share that document?
I probably can. It's a training, so I generally don't share my documents. But yes, you're on my team, Astrid. I can probably do that.
Thank you.
Oops, I just lost my screen now. Anybody else have any questions or anything as I try and recover my, there we go, my screen? How's everybody's bookings going along? Is Patricia still on here? Why do I keep doing it? I keep losing my corner here. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the chat screen. Okay, good. Well, if no one has any additional questions, and JG and Natasha, and I appreciate everybody being on, but all these people who is after midnight, God bless you. I appreciate you even joining me. I'm at the beginning of this call because now we're looking at 1:25 in the morning where you are, and thank you so much because I know the both of you will be on the call with me tomorrow morning at 5:30. Please feel free to join us tomorrow morning on the Sunrise Morning Inspirational Rise and Grind. I don't believe I'm hosting tomorrow. I believe Mama Gail has landed and gotten situated where she's going to be. But we definitely have some great travel information that should be available tomorrow. And thank you all for joining me tonight on the Monday Night Hustle. We hustle with few, but we really, really get in there and get to it. If anybody has any questions or anything that they'd like me to address next week, let me know. I am available to answer direct questions, any booking assistance, we all learn this way, and the more we learn, the more we earn. So with that said, I'll say good night because it's late, and I will see some of y'all tomorrow. And otherwise, I will see you all next week on the Monday Night Hustle. Thanks for joining me, and have a fabulous evening.